Despite the dire circumstances surrounding the recording of the last video that I made, I actually enjoyed the process of getting my thoughts down and, editing and making the video and uploading them to YouTube in a long form. And so I thought I would try that again with a somewhat less serious issue, something that was just bugging me. And I thought instead of making a long Twitter thread, I should just, quickly talk about it. But before I get into that, I will still have a link to my previous video regarding SARS and bad governance in Nigeria and the protests that were happening and the current movement that is happening. We're still on the issue. There's still so much that has to be done, so much progress that has to be made. So I will link to some resources in the description box. Please take some time and check it out. Any little assistance, any way you can help, any way you can spread the word, I would really, really be grateful and appreciate it. So, today I want to talk about Blackish. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably already know about the show, so I don't need to explain what the show is about, the general conventions of the show, this, that, and the other, or even the controversies surrounding the show and colorism and Kenya Barris. I think he's a producer, he produces the show, or he writes for it or something. He's involved in some sort of way with the show, and I don't need to go into detail about, his controversy surrounding colorism. I just want to talk about a specific example that was really unsettling to me, and the situation occurred around the 4th minute of episode 8 of season 3, if I remember correctly. Yes, episode 8 of season 3.
What did you expect, man? I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. I went to an all-black college. I never mastered the art of white women.
It's not your fault, Dre. White women are probably just scared of you. I know my wife is.
White women aren't scared of me. I can't keep them off me. My friends, they call me the bunny magnet. Lord Snow, White Walker, Anglo-Saxon Jackson. I think I might be a sellout.
All right, now this is fascinating. Now, Charles, let's pretend that I am a white woman walking through the produce section of Trader Joe's. What do you say to get these pants off?
I would start by telling you that Aspen got 2 inches of fresh powder last night.
Oh,
really?
Then I would ask you, how close are you to your father?
I love my
Is
father.
it fake snow or real
Daddy
snow?
and I are close.
Hey, why am I seeing so much of this and none of this? Yeah, you guys need to get back to work on this Microsoft campaign, or all of you will be this.
Okay.
And that's why it keeps me some snow.
Charlie reveals to his co-workers that white women are attracted to him. This isn't an issue. He also intimates that he is attracted to white women almost exclusively. Again, this is not an issue. Everyone has preferences, and everyone gets to have preferences. My problem with this scene arises when Daphne, a darker-skinned black woman who's an executive at the firm they work at, she comes in to tell the men that instead of sitting around and discussing and faffing about, they should get back to work. And then she makes an obscene gesture. If the scene had just ended there, that would have been fine. I would have had no issues with it. But the scene ends with Charlie saying, "And that's why I keeps me some snow." Charlie infers that he prefers to date white women because black women are opinionated and aggressive. My problem with this scene stems from the fact that in order to validate Charlie's preference for white women, black women are disparaged. Why is it that his preference for white women stems from his dislike of black women being, can you hear my quotation marks, opinionated? This takes me to the larger issue I have with the show, colorism. I'm sure if you know of the show and Kenya Barris, then you know of how the show and Kenya himself have been accused of perpetuating colorism. This specific example with Charlie is just a microcosm of the larger issue. The reason it's so damaging is that oftentimes black women, specifically darker-skinned black women like Wanda, at least compared to the other women in the show, are often seen as aggressive because of their darkness. This is the same brand of colorism that makes people call light-skinned black men soft and discriminate them on that basis. It stems from associating darker skin with traits that our society often ascribes to traditional masculinity. Dark-skinned black women suffer from this because oftentimes they are perceived as being aggressive when they're just stating their opinion and being themselves. A lot of the time, darker-skinned black women have to filter themselves and constantly be aware that even though they're not being aggressive, they have to tone down themselves and their nature just to make others comfortable, to be accommodating to others. Additionally, because of ascribing traditionally masculine traits to darker skin tones, dark-skinned black women, are often denied traditional traits of femininity such as innocence, softness, grace, poise, and eventually desirability. So darker-skinned black women have to police their tones and work twice as hard just so people don't treat them on the basis of those implicit biases. Now, back to the example with Charlie and Daphne, you might argue that Daphne was actually being aggressive. After all, she did make an obscene gesture. But I would argue that if you've watched the other episodes of Blackish, and I imagine that if you're watching this video, then you certainly have, then you'll see that in virtually every episode, Daphne's employees, the men she flipped off, constantly say and do things that are deeply racist, sexist, offensive, and crass. In fact, that is the whole point of their group on the show. So her relating to them in the same manner should not be seen as aggressive. She's just partaking in the company culture. So why does Charlie use that as a way of justifying his preference for white women? He's making a conclusion about all black women based on Daphne's action. Essentially, he's making her speak for all black women, specifically dark-skinned black women. He is using her crassness in comparison to white women who he is asserting would have the desirable traits ascribed to femininity. Like we said, not being crass, not being aggressive, being graceful, docile, etc. And the worst part is Charlie is a dark-skinned black man. In fact, he's one of the darkest characters on the show. If someone had called him out or challenged him on this, then I would argue that the show did this on purpose to call it out, to evaluate the colorism that oftentimes darker-skinned black women face. However, the scene just ends there, showing that the show permits it to happen, and that just didn't sit right with me, so I thought I should just, quickly record something and talk about it. This is an open discussion. If you have any other opinions, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, let me know. Comment down below. Let's talk about it. That's just one of the examples that I just quickly wanted to talk about. Thank you for listening.